Well, the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD, has won its first seats in the parliament and is set to be the third party. The result has sparked protests across the country. Demonstrators gathered outside the AfD headquarters in Berlin, as well as Frankfurt and Cologne, carrying a banner saying, "Nationalism is no alternative," end quote. The demonstration remained mostly peaceful. AfD was founded in 2013 and its policy is heavily anti-immigrant and particularly anti-Islam.
We need to go outside and say that we're against it. We are in favor of a democracy which is void of right-wing populism.
They are just Nazis. When you look at these politicians and the language they are using, it reminds you very much of our past.
And more now out of Germany, and I'm joined live from Munich by Natalie Kanye. Natalie, how have people reacted there to the re-election of Angela Merkel?
Well, I think it's fair to say that people are really in two minds. Her supporters are in two minds. While they're happy to see the CDU back in power for another 4 years here in the country, they are very disappointed by the numbers that they received. The numbers are the lowest that the party has ever received, which really points towards sort of a growing disdain of her leadership amongst the majority of the population, really, who did not vote for her. It also means that there's a long slug ahead for her to create that coalition government, and as Guy mentioned in his package, it looks like it's going to be, the likely option is going to be what they're calling the Jamaica coalition, which includes the Liberal FDP, the Free Democratic Party, as well as the Greens. The problem is that those two smaller parties hold very polar opposite opinions on a number of different issues, in particular Germany's role in the greater European Union. So Angela Merkel has quite a fight ahead of her over the next 4 years. It's certainly not going to be the easy ride that some have said she's had for the last little while. And again, the emergence of this AfD, this far-right nationalist group, they vowed to make it a very difficult ride for Angela Merkel over the next 4 years. So it could emerge that politics in Germany do become far more interesting going forward as well, but could also change the dynamics of the European Union as a whole.
Right, Natalie. Well, there have been protests, though, against the far-right AfD. How much of a challenge will the party prove in Parliament?
Well, again, they vowed to make it a very bumpy road ahead for the Chancellor Angela Merkel and the CDU and the CSU and whatever coalition does form the next government here. There were calls of congratulations, that being said, from other far-right parties across Europe. For instance, in France, the National Front leader Marine Le Pen tweeted, "Bravo to our allies from the AfD. It's a symbol of the awakening of the people of Europe." And also in the Netherlands, the Dutch far-right leader Geert Wilders said the message is clear: we are no Islamic nation. So this sort of anti-Islam, anti-immigration policies that the AfD have been trumpeting have clearly found a place with some people. Here in Bavaria in particular, there's been a lot of sort of disdain towards Angela Merkel's refugee policy. Bavaria really felt at the forefront of the refugee crisis back in 2015, with over 1 million people streaming into the country from neighboring Austria. So there was quite a lot of sentiment down here from a lot of people I've spoken to, traditional CSU supporters, CSU of course being the sister party of the CDU, of the policies of the AfD. So it's going to prove very difficult for her going forward. And again, with the coalition and the difference in policies that the coalition, if it is the Jamaica coalition, has to face in the first place, it's going to be a rough ride for Merkel over the next 4 years.
Right, Natalie, and of course that's the other question. So what next now for Angela Merkel and her 4-year term? What will Merkel and her coalition be focusing on now that they've secured another term?
Well, I think first and foremost would probably be the reaction to this sort of nationalist surge that we've seen not only in Germany but across the European Union. Germany, of course, is somewhat seen as the dominating partner within the European Union and plays a very incredible and important role in the policies that are formed across the Union. And now Germany itself domestically has to deal with this surge of nationalism, and particularly here with its past of right-wing extremism under the Nazis years ago. It's a very sort of seismic shift for this country to see that party back in, or that sentiment back in government. So that is definitely going to be, I would assume, first and foremost, a very big area of discussion amongst this newly formed coalition. And then again, the relation with the European Union and economic reforms as well that were put forward by the French President Emmanuel Macron. That will be another area of heavy discussions, I would assume, to see in the first few months of Angela Merkel's new term here in Germany.
All right, Natalie Carney joining us there from Munich.